knows that the four little books that A. Milne wrote in the 1920s. Is there anybody here who did not grow up on A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh books and perhaps the two books of children's poetry? Anybody? No. Nobody. Nearly everyone knows so nearly everybody knows that, but what nearly everybody doesn't know is that at the time that these first saw print, in 1924, Milne had 5 plays running simultaneously on the stage in New York and London. If that's not a record, it's still a very, very impressive accomplishment. Almost no one knows that Milne would eventually complete 34 plays, 7 novels, and various collections of sketches, poetry, and essays. It's actually not surprising that the children's books are the ones, the core of his fame and fortune. This edition that I have here of Now We Are Six, published in 1961, and it's the 300th printing. Well, the General's taken off his helmet a little earlier. It was in his 300th printing in 1961. None of the 4 has ever been out of print since they were written. They seem to be children's books, but adults don't find them boring. So it's very easy for adults to read them to their children and their grandchildren, as I've done and probably many of you have done as well. Plays, on the other hand, haven't worn as well. They were admirably suited for the interwar period, when people were looking for something to take their minds off the horrors of the Great War, which had just finished. They have a particularly understated British humor about them. The word whimsical is often applied to Milne's writing. It's a word that he came to hate, because he thought his writing was more serious than that, was worthy of more serious consideration. Just as Christopher Robin came to hate his fame as the subject of those 4 children's books. Few of Milne's plays were serious, in the sense that his contemporaries, George Bernard Shaw, were serious, or even Oscar Wilde, although Wilde wrote books for children as well, but the children's author didn't seem to stick to him as it did to Milne. Another friend of Milne's, James M. Barrie, also wrote, of course, the classic Peter Pan, but and unfortunately, that's just about all we know Barrie for. Great plays like What Every Woman Knows, that Deborah and I first met doing at the old Stage Right Theater, probably deserve more attention than they get. Everything's Peter Pan when it comes to James M. Barrie. Alan Alexander Milne was born in 1882 to a schoolmaster. He attended his father's school, where he was taught by H.G. Wells, who remained a lifelong friend. Other friends of his included Barrie and also Arthur Conan Doyle. Barrie and Arthur Conan Doyle played with Milne on a amateur cricket team. They were avid cricketers. After completing a BA at Cambridge, which he attended on a mathematics scholarship, if you can believe it, oddly enough, Milne became an assistant editor at Punch, the weekly humor magazine, where he honed his skill at depicting the lives of the British middle class. After the war, Great War, to nearly everyone's amazement, including his own, he did not return to Punch, but started a career as a playwright and an author in London. His success in the 20s with the children's books assured him for the rest of his life with all the fame and fortune he could ever want or need. It also, of course, made E.H. Shepard's reputation and fortune as well. Milne was a pacifist during the Great War, although not a conscientious objector. He served in the Signal Corps, and then he was injured and returned to London, where he wrote propaganda for MI7. Between the wars, he wrote an anti-war tract entitled Peace with Honor, but when the reality of Nazism became evident, he partially retracted some of his views in that book and wrote another book called War with Honor. Served as an officer in the Home Guards during World War II. My acquaintance with A. Milne began in 1952 when my mother bought for me those 4 children's books for $1.50 each. And you open these up, on the inside cover you will see her autograph, Gwen H. Jones. That's Gwen Hurst Jones, Shirley, and $1.50. She paid $1.50 for them. Brought them home to me. I can still remember reading the Pooh traps a heffalump, or piglet does, I don't know, down in the basement, and I was so, my laughter was so loud, my parents came downstairs to see what was the matter with me. I was laughing so loud over the horrible Huffalump and the Huffable Horralump. Anyway. Coincidentally, that 1952, when she first bought those books for me, that was when his last book was written, and this was the first of his adult books to come to my attention. In 1965, I chanced upon a copy of it. It's called Year In, Year Out. It was the last collection at Salter's used bookstore on Broadway in New York City. I bought it. I usually say that I got it for $0.25, and that's the way I remember it, but if you look inside, it will say here that it's $1, marked down to $1. But he may have put it out on the quarter table or something, I don't know. Anyway, whatever the case is, reading this book, and one of the selections here we will do tonight, profoundly changed my opinion of Milne and launched me on sort of a one-man crusade to rescue his writings for adults from their obscurity. And tonight, this is going to be part of that effort. The first of our presentations tonight is The General Takes Off His Helmet, published as a play in 1939 in a collection designed to raise money for the Red Cross. It was called The Queen's Red Cross Book, Queen being Elizabeth. My son Christopher and I have, I'm sorry, well, it says the Queen's, probably the old Queen Mum, because in 1939 Elizabeth was still a princess. My son Christopher and I have taken our adaptation, anyway, from the version that was published in a collection called The Birthday Party, published in 1948. And so with that, we will have The General Takes Off His Helmet.
The General is out inspecting the XXVII division. They're a mixed crowd of Libyans and Moors and Carthaginian officers. If I look out through the tent flap, I can see them standing to attention and looking unwinking to the front. They can't see me, but they know I'm in here in the cool of the tent. They pretend to despise me, but really they envy me. They envy me because I live so safely and so comfortably. Well, safely, anyhow. I don't lead forlorn assaults and have hot lead poured on me from the walls by shrieking women. No, I'm spared that. Comfort, too, up to a point, though not quite what they think. Good food, good quarters, yes. But it is anything but a comfortable life being aide-de-camp to the general when he is in one of his moods. A fellow simply doesn't know where he is with him. And when Hannibal comes in out of the heat, he will be in one of his moods. The army is besieging Saguntum. I'm not quite sure why. I had understood that they were just marching on Rome, wherever that is. And I promised the girl I left behind in Carthage, the 3 girls I left behind in Carthage, to bring back the head of one of those senators that were making all the trouble and a jeweled comb such as the Roman ladies wear. But passing Saguntum on our way, we stopped to take it, and that was 8 months ago, and here we still are. Most of the troops outside thought and have gone on thinking that they were besieging Rome, and that war was very nearly over. But I, being so close to the general, had only thought so for a very short time. Now I know the war is just beginning. When the general comes in, you'll see I'm taller than he, but the general's golden helmet with its flashing plumes make him look taller. For an oldish man of 30, well, 30-something, anyway, Hannibal makes a fine figure from the back. Even from the front, there's something about his face, not beautiful, of course, not like mine, but with something in it, something behind it, which I can never feel quite sure about. The general is a dreamer, missing out on all the good things of life, like women and, well, women. In pursuit of some inescapable end to which, the story goes, he was pledged as a child. You might say that he is something of a child still sometimes, and though I have to admit he is a good general and all that, nobody who talks as he does when he is in one of those moods can be called really intelligent. Not like me. But when you have promised your sister, who after all got me the job, to look after the man, you have to look after him. You have to humor him. And somehow, but I don't quite know how, you can't help liking the fellow. I would have liked him even if he hadn't written to my sister. Let me quote it. "I can never thank you enough. Your Gisco is a constant delight and inspiration to me." Well, the inspection is over. Here he comes, and you'll see what I mean about those moods.
Ye gods, how I hate these helmets!
It is a hot day for helmets, anyhow, sir.
Well, you've nothing to complain of. Look at the size of yours compared with mine. Here, take this.
Yes, sir. True, oh Hannibal, but then look at the size of your brain as compared with mine. This is what an aide-de-camp is for. This is what I do so well.
If that's meant for flattery, I don't want it. And if it's meant for irony, I won't have it.
It was meant for the truth, sir.
In that case, it was a gross understatement. My helmet's only twice the size of yours.
Quite so, sir. Was I just insulted?
Those fellows in the little leather caps. I envied them, Gisco. I envied them.
The sanitary squad, sir?
Oh, were those the sanitary squads?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my dear boy, please. Oh. Those sanitary squads. How would it be if, in future, they all wore helmets like mine, and I, the commander-in-chief, wore a little leather cap like theirs?
The general is coming to an important decision. I can see it in his face. Perhaps he will decide to call the whole campaign off. Perhaps we'll be back in Carthage by autumn. Perhaps Thalictra and I. If I choose Thalictra.
So how would it be if, in future, the commander-in-chief wore a little leather cap like theirs?
No Carthage, then. With what object, sir?
Oh, damn it, so that they'd get the headaches and I shouldn't.
Quite so, sir. Is it an order? The poor fellow is crazy. But one must humor him. We'll take it all quite seriously.
I don't know. I'll tell you later.
Yes, sir.
We must consider both sides. I suppose all those feathers and things are more dignified.
If you wore the leather cap, sir, then very soon the leather cap would be more dignified.
Well, obviously, one would hope that such would be the case, but in actual fact, it wouldn't.
No, sir?
On the other hand, it would be cooler.
Yes, sir. No hope for Carthage, then, or Thalictra, not this autumn.
Oh,
what now?
tell me, just for interest, I've often wondered, if I do make it an order, what exactly happens?
Naturally, sir, it is carried out. That was an easy one.
You know, sometimes you give the impression of being quite intelligent. And sometimes you give the impression of being completely the reverse. Is there a reason, or is it just chance?
I was going to say, as politely as I could, it isn't always easy, that I didn't know what the poor fellow was talking about, but it's obvious he's not listening.
There are fortunate men who rose from the ranks to be commanders. Alas, I didn't. I was born to it. That puts me at a disadvantage. There are things which I simply don't know. What I want to know is this. What happens to this order as soon as I have given it to you?
Oh, I see, sir. Oh, it's like this, sir. I write it out, and when you have signed it, I hand it to your chief of staff.
Never mind the signature. I tell you, you tell the chief of staff. Whom does he tell?
The divisional commanders.
And they?
The captains commanding companies.
And they?
And the officers commanding the company's sanitary squads.
And they?
They would make out a requisition for the number of helmets they wanted, and I suppose the sizes, and that would go back to the captains commanding companies, and they...
Don't tell me. They would pass it back to the generals commanding division.
Exactly,
And they would
sir.
pass it back to the chief of staff.
Yes, sir. After all that, I think I've earned a second drink.
Excellent. You will be glad to hear that so far I have followed you with ease. You will also observe that so far nobody has done anything at all except tell somebody else to do it. But there must be a terrifying moment when somebody actually has to set to and make a helmet, simply because there's nobody else that he can get to do it for him. Who is that unhappy man?
I saw this question coming. And when lesser men might have fallen down, I was ready to stand up to it, even if I was improvising a bit. Well, sir, I suppose the requisition would eventually come to the master armorer.
Ah, thank you.
And he would tell the armorer sergeants...
I was hasty, I apologize.
Who would tell the armorers to make the helmets?
And they would make them?
Yes, sir. I congratulated myself on having explained it all to the general's satisfaction, but I should have known there was more to come.
How?
I beg your pardon, sir?
I said, how?
You mean, how would they make them?
What else could I possibly mean?
Well,
Imagine yourself to be an armorer. The armorer sergeant has just told you to make 149 helmets. Damn it, Gisco, you can't do it.
I am not an armorer. I am a nursemaid to an infuriating child.
You start with a wad of gold and you beat it into a thin plate and you sort of bend it, or don't you?
Sir, really?
What's the matter?
You wouldn't have gold helmets for sanitary squads.
If even my elephants have ivory tusks, are my sanitary squads to be grudged gold helmets?
Quite so, sir.
What I want you to observe is how very much easier it is to be a commander-in-chief than to be an armorer. All I do is say, let the sanitary squads wear gold helmets. And in a week from now...
better say a fortnight from now to be on the safe side.
In 3 days from now...
Yes, sir. 3 days, sir. Yes, sir.
In 3 days, the sanitary squads are wearing gold helmets. It's marvelous. Incredible. I go down in history, and yet, what have I done? Nothing that demands the exercise of the intelligence or the operation of a manual skill. Any fool can give an order, Gisco, but it takes a clever man to execute them.
But it takes a genius to give the right orders. Loud applause? No applause at all. And I thought it was my brightest reply of the day. Apparently not. It only set him off again.
And who the Hades is to know whether they are the right orders? Do you set yourself up as a judge?
The gods forbid,
Then
sir.
who?
Nobody in the army would dare to, sir.
Exactly. I give the order to besiege Saguntum, and for 237 days we've been besieging the
goddamn town!
And who is to tell me whether I am right or wrong?
I was searching desperately for something helpful, something soothing, something inspiring to say. I always understood, sir, that it was meant to be a declaration of war against Rome, Saguntum being under Roman protection.
What other commander has ever taken 237 days to declare war? Why not march straight on Rome? They'd have gotten the idea.
Well, sir, you can't leave a fortified town in your rear to cut off your line of retreat.
My line of what?
I mean, sir, you can't have a fortified town like Saguntum harassing your rear as you advance.
My dear Gisco, use words in some relation to the meaning. How can a fortified town harass the rear of a rapidly departing army? It can't run after us.
No, sir. If I didn't know that the general was delighted with me, if I didn't know for a fact that I inspired him, there are times when I might feel a little doubtful about my position, wondering if I am to take him seriously when he seems to be differing from me. As it is, I know this is just the general's way. Once again, I had given him something to think about, but naturally, a commander-in-chief doesn't want to acknowledge too openly that
Think elephants.
Take what, sir?
Elephants.
Yes, sir. All right. Take elephants.
Here we go again. Am I right to burden myself with all these elephants? Who knows?
Surely, sir, they will strike terror into the hearts of the Romans. At least they will if they're at all like me.
Possibly, if they ever get within trumpeting distance of one. At present, it looks as if some of the young ones might just see the siege of Saguntum out. How long does an elephant live?
About 80 years, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, some of the very young ones.
Yes, sir.
Suppose I sent them back to Carthage.
Yes, sir.
Somebody takes them.
Yes, sir.
I should know how to take 37 elephants back to Carthage, would you?
For one wild moment, I thought of saying, yes, sir. Saying that as a boy I had been brought up with elephants. Only Hannibal knew my sister too well to believe that the family was in the elephant business. Or of saying, I would like to try, only there was nothing I would hate more. Or of saying anything to get back to Carthage and Thalictra. And, of course, of Daphnis and Melita. And away from the camp, and the questions, and the knowledge that there was nothing I could say, and that I'm here for another how many years, and I hadn't even begun the real war yet, and that I would never see Melita again, or Thalictra or Daphnis. And all this turned me suddenly from a charmingly tactful aide-de-camp into a very hot, very annoyed young man. I don't happen to be an authority on elephants.
You aren't an authority on elephants, and you can't make a helmet. What can you do?
If it comes to that, Hannibal, what can you do?
This is one of your bad days, Gisco. For the last 20 minutes, I've been confessing my complete inability to do anything. And now you ask me insolently, with the air of making a point, what can I do?
Oh, so I was insolent, was I?
You were, you still are. It's a hot day, of course.
I'm insolent, am I? All right, then, crucify me! As soon as I said that, I rather wished I hadn't. Supposing the general took me at my word, there are plenty of reminders right outside the tent from discipline imposed during the siege. It's an unpleasant form of death, and I don't want to die anyhow. Of course, my sister might do something at the last moment. Perhaps even now, an apology might... But he does nothing. Well, I'm not going to stand that sort of thing. Go on! Discipline must be maintained! You've said it often enough. Go on, crucify me!
There you go again. You're making a ridiculously unwarranted demand of my powers. I simply don't know how to begin crucifying anybody. One starts by making a cross, I suppose. Well, but where do I get the wood? And then it has to be shaped and nailed. No, that won't do. Fitted together in some way with a tenon, do you call it? And braced, is that it? Braced at the back. You know, the more I think about it, the more complicated it seems.
You've only got to look outside, then. There are plenty of old crosses ready for you. Discipline must be maintained.
Well, that's funny. That's twice you said that, and in the same unnatural voice. Is that supposed to be an imitation of me?
It is.
Is my voice really like that?
Yes, and I'm sick of the sound of it.
Let's just try, if you don't mind. I'll get this established. I'll go first. Discipline must be maintained. Yeah, you say it.
Discipline must be maintained.
It's not very good, is it? Apparently you add to your inability to make helmets and conduct elephants across country an inability to give recognizable imitations.
Inabilities which I have the honor of sharing with my Lord Hannibal.
True. And in addition, I can't wear a helmet without getting a headache, can't take saguntum, and I can't even keep the respect of a very ordinary young man with red ears.
Sir, forgive me. I am ashamed. I am not worthy to live. Say the word, and I will fall on it.
You probably miss it.
I was beginning to wonder about that, too, actually. It was easy enough to say, but how exactly does one go about doing it? All right, that was easy anyhow. Say the word, and I will plunge it into my heart. I wish the lecturer could see me now. My sister and Daphnis and Melita. My sister will get a letter from Hannibal, and in a little while the news will be all over Carthage. Hannibal told my sister that her brother was a constant inspiration to him. Perhaps he didn't mean it quite in the way they supposed, but at least I've inspired him now.
There is something we both could do. We found it at last. No orders to give to others. No wondering afterwards if we were right or wrong. A decision. Private in application, personal execution, which we can never regret. You my sword, Gisco.
Hannibal!
At least my orders will be obeyed.
I would rather obey any order other than that. This is actually true. If Hannibal kills himself, then I have to kill myself too. And then there will be no one to write to my sister and tell her how bravely her brother died. And Thalictra, and of course Melita and Daphnis, will never know. Yes, I would obey any order sooner than that one.
It's curious. It's the most humane order I've ever given. Give me that sword, Gisco. The helmet, too. We are going to a place where there will be no headaches. Might as well try to look like a general for the last time.
Hark! What is that I hear? Hark! What is that I hear? My lord!
Well, sir?
Surrender, my lord! Ha ha! A delegation of surrender from the town!
Oh. They're being conducted here?
Yes. Is it in here you would receive them?
Yes. My helmet, Gisco. No. They are brave men and have fought bravely. In respect for their valor, I shall go out and receive them as equals. My lords, I have the honor to receive you as you come, unarmed and bareheaded.
Well, as I was saying, you can't help liking the man.